going on, everybody? Welcome back to Headass Garage. Now, if you're new to the channel, you may not be familiar with what this video is about or the car that it's about, and that is this, my Honda S2000. At the beginning of this year, we uploaded a video titled, I blew up my S2000, and that I did pretty damn well. Before we get into everything that's been done to it over the last 6 months, we'll hop in the car and go on a quick ride, and I'll catch you guys up to speed there. A little over 6 months ago, we uploaded a video where I taught Emma how to drive stick in the S2000. If you want to see a part 2 to that video, be sure to hit like and subscribe so that you get notified whenever we upload that video. But on the way back from that trip, I pulled out onto Highway 380 out here in northern Texas, which is a pretty major road, and almost immediately after pulling onto the road, I had shifted from first to second. Nothing extreme. I mean, it was the most gingerly driving that I've done in this car. It was super casual 1-2 shift. I wasn't on it at all, and the trans had a massive thud, and anytime that I let in the clutch, there was a horrible grinding noise. And at that point, I assumed my transmission was toast. A little over a week later, we ended up towing the car to a local shop to get the transmission fixed on it. Once it got to that shop, that's where the timeline starts to get a little confusing or a little rough. We dropped the car off the first part of December. I got a call back a few days after dropping it off, and they were just calling to make sure, are we good to go ahead and get started working on your car? And of course, yes, you're good to go. They pulled out the transmission within several days, and which for me, I was like, oh, that's a good sign. I should get my car back soon. All is lovely. About a month goes by and I'm calling. They're saying that they're struggling getting parts in to fix the transmission and that they might have to source a new transmission, which again, is fine. That stuff happens. There's parts delays, all that. A few more months go by and I'm not getting any calls from this shop. They are not updating me on the car. At this point, I have no clue what's going on. I started going in almost weekly to go and check on the car, get any updates on it, any way that I can help speed up the process, because I can't exactly go a couple months without a daily driver. So they told me that they couldn't find any spare transmission or get any of the parts shipped in within the next like 3 or 4 months. So I went ahead and started to search myself to find a transmission, and I found one out in Florida. It was from a company called Gear Driven, which they carry a bunch of different JDM transmissions. They have S2000, they have Lancer trans, they have quite a few different transmissions. And working with Dale over at Gear Driven was great. So if you guys need any transmissions or need a transmission rebuild, he does not need the core. He can find and source the transmission himself. I highly recommend checking out his business. If you do need a trans, he might carry yours. Everything on his end was fantastic. So I ordered the transmission. It took about 3 weeks to rebuild. I'll throw in a bunch of pictures right now. Dale was kind enough to provide me with those pictures. And so after about 3 weeks, he was able to rebuild it and get it sent out. So a month after ordering it, the transmission was at the shop and ready for them to throw it in. Once they had gotten the transmission, it took about 2 weeks for them to get the transmission put back in and the overall drivability figured out. We'll go ahead and do a price breakdown on what the overall cost was for buying the transmission rebuilt, getting it shipped out here, and what the overall labor costs and other parts like the clutch, like the slave cylinder, those sorts of things, different bearings. We'll go ahead and do a breakdown in just a minute. However, the story continues. There's a reason why it took even longer. I got the car back on May 25th. The car broke on November 29th of last year. So literally 4 days shy of a full 6 months since the car broke. So I was obviously very happy to be able to go out and drive it. And on Memorial Day, my brother was like, hey, can we take the S2000 to the park? And of course, I will never complain about a reason to drive this car. On the way back, I started noticing some really weird wobbling. I was like, maybe that's the road. I sped up and the wobbling sped up with it, so I went ahead and pulled over. And when I pulled over, I checked my passenger rear tire and it was completely flat. Once I got the tire off, I was able to see a massive hole. I'll go ahead and toss in that clip right now. This is worn completely flat because of how much camber I have. This still has great grip over here. We roll this around, it becomes abundantly clear why it was flat. That is one hell of a failure. So I guess let this be your warning. Always check your tires, make sure they have enough air in them and enough tread life. That is horrible. Thankfully this happened while I was just parked. It wasn't something that had happened while I was at speed, otherwise it could have been a lot uglier. The tires were worn down completely. The rear was incredibly out of alignment. The rear right tire, which is the one that ended up having the hole in it, the rear right tires was towed in quite a bit. All the tires had too much toe. I can flash up a picture right now of the overall alignment specs. It was rough before, not in a good place. And ordering tires for this car proved to be incredibly difficult because I run a 255/40/17 in the rear in Indy 500s. And there's a Firestone shop right around the corner from my house, like literally under 2 miles from my house. So I was like, great, I'll run over there, see if they have the tire. Shouldn't be a problem. So I give them the specs for my rear tires. They check the entire state of Texas. There was only a set of 4 down in Houston. So I ended up having to order from Tire Rack and have them shipped to that Firestone shop so that they could have those installed. After putting in the order for those, it ended up being a little over a week until they would come in. So after waiting 6 months to get the car back from the shop, less than a week later the tire pops and I end up having to wait 10 days for a new set of tires to come in. I was considering going to a different company, a different compound, but just found that I was pretty satisfied with the Indy 500s overall. I went ahead and put that tire all the way around on all 4 tires. But that's just to catch you up to speed on what happened to the car. To make it real brief, shop couldn't order the transmission, so I ended up having to source it myself. It took them 6 months to get all of the work done, which is way too long. Once I did get the car back, the tires were worn down completely, so we had to wait for the tires to come in, but all of that is sorted. We've got the car now. It's got new tires on it, and now we're just about at our destination, so we're gonna pull over and I'll go ahead and do a price breakdown with y'all. Now let's get into the overall breakdown of costs. For the actual transmission from Gear Driven itself, it ended up with shipping coming out to just over $4,000. It was about $4,050. For all of the work that the shop did to the transmission, that includes labor, the clutch, the slave cylinder, and a couple other items I'm forgetting, it came out to $2,553. When you add all of that together, it's about $6,600 just for the transmission. And then the tires were a surprising cost to me, because when I did all of the math and went on to Firestone and did the math, with installation, it came out to just about $700, just shy. I ended up spending for installation, tires, and an alignment over $900. So in the last 6 months that I haven't even gotten to drive the car, I have spent roughly $7,500 on it. As for what's coming with the car, if you guys recall, I ended up chipping my bumper right here on the way out here. And you will also know from the first video we ever did with this car that Marcus and I worked a very long time body working and painting this bumper. So having it chipped was honestly like, I wasn't as worried about the chip as much as I was like, that was just so much time that went into it. So we do have some modifications and some body work coming for the car. Also, these hideous chips in the fender that the previous owner bondoed over, we're gonna go ahead and fix that, do what we can to get that worked out and repainted. And we've also got a Nexar dash cam video. Cheers. We've got a Nexar dash cam video coming because these Texas drivers are anything but confidence inspiring. But yeah, lots of stuff to come. Now that we have the car back, we are going to waste no time getting to work on this thing and bringing you guys more content and just leveling up the car.
as well as the Buick needs a lot of work. It is sitting in the most dismal state I have ever seen, covered in a layer of black. We'll be sure to bring that back to the channel, get that car fixed, and get everything worked out that way. With that, this has been Headass Garage. We thank you guys for watching all of our videos. It helps out a ton. We just hit 300 subscribers, which is big for us. If you guys don't mind hitting that like button and that subscribe button, if you're new around here, it would help us out a ton, and it allows us to keep bringing you guys this sort of content. Thank you guys. Peace!